What's going on, everybody? This is Lady Luck. Okay, so I wanted to do a video because I actually planned on doing this yesterday and I just didn't get the time to do it. But oh Lord, I did 2 videos. If you guys have not seen, I did a full mini film, which is, I'm surprised it's a little over 2 hours. It's considerably lengthy, about the cease and desist orders regarding the scam NovaTech, and put in some options and information in there, about how to go about filing a lawsuit if you want to do so. And of course, I got some feedback. Watched a couple of videos, some feedback on some things that were, God, in my opinion, seems to be almost slight intimidation towards the idea to file a civil lawsuit. And I say slight because it's almost put out there like, hey, what goes around comes around, sort of thing. And that's just not how, first of all, that's not how the law works. That's not how civil lawsuits work. It is not a matter of there's some consequence or penalty you will suffer for filing a civil lawsuit. That is not how that works at all. And there are some people that might be, slightly intimidated to do so, because you have people out here making videos saying things like, it's not worth it, don't file lawsuits. You have to understand that you live by, the sword, you die by the sword, and all kinds of crazy things. That, first of all, that idiom has nothing to do with you filing a civil lawsuit. If you have legal standing, you have evidence and documentation, and you can prove that you were indeed defrauded by any scam, and you want to seek compensation and damages done, then you have the right to file that lawsuit. There's no reason why anyone should be telling anyone by any means that they should not do it because, well, the law is just, if you live by the law, you die by the law. I mean, we have laws in place for a reason. Those are the same people, though, if they were burglarized, they would call the police to say, hey, I was burglarized, I want to file a police report. So you can't pick and choose which laws you want to uphold and which laws you want to dismiss because it doesn't fit your narrative, if it doesn't fit your moot point. You're not proving a point by saying that filing a civil lawsuit in a situation where someone has been defrauded by a scam, is somehow going to generate some consequence. But there's no law or anything to back that up at all. And if you don't believe me, Google it. What are the consequences of filing a civil lawsuit? The worst you have to worry about is a countersuit or an appeal or a motion to dismiss your lawsuit. But 9 times out of 10, that's not consequential directly back to you because you simply filed the lawsuit. If you have legal standing, if you have your evidence and documentation, the fact that NovaTech has 3 cease and desist orders, that alone can be used to build your case for a civil lawsuit anyway. So it's not as if it's just an assumption or some run-of-the-mill, conspiracy that they're a scam. No, they're actually getting cease and desist orders. They've gotten securities fraud warnings and have cease and desist orders for securities fraud. The last one being from the state of Wisconsin, in which a promoter was also named in that cease and desist order. Please keep in mind that these promoters out here on YouTube that are always talking about, I'm not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice, do not want you to name them in a cease and desist order or a lawsuit, because it's going to be hard for them to defend their innocence, especially when they have nothing but videos and all kinds of other electronic communications proving that they actually perpetuated the scam. Any scam, any platform where you're talking about a rug pull and it's not actually regulated by the SEC, it's not registered. You have no idea what they're really doing. They can't prove they're even trading. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. That idiom fits in this scenario. But a live by the sword, die by the sword idiom does not. Unless they try to retaliate on you, and that mainly being through a countersuit or an appeal. What is the consequences to filing a civil lawsuit when you have legal standing to do so? When you have documentation and evidence? When you have 3 cease and desist orders? And you have a slew full of other lawsuits that have been filed against NovaTech and these peons for stealing money or not being financially or fiscally responsible. You have the right to file the lawsuit. So here it is, and you guys know I like to look things up because this is not just my opinion. This is the uscourts.gov website, and the U.S. courts state that in a civil case, if it is a legal dispute between 2 or more parties, a civil action begins with when a party to a dispute files a complaint and pays a filing fee required by statute. A plaintiff is unable to pay the fee, may file a request to proceed in forma pauperis. If the request is granted, the fee is waived. So basically, this is the process to case prep, settling differences, trial process, and closing. These are the steps that you will see when you file a civil lawsuit. Now, I encourage everyone in my videos, when it comes to any legal proceedings whatsoever, to consult an attorney. If you talk to an attorney and if you get, advice from the attorney, they can break down what the process will be, how to file, ask questions. They can help you understand what informa pauperis. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but they can help you understand all of that. I know that I'm not going to ever have anyone intimidate me if I need to file a civil lawsuit. No one's going to intimidate me not to do it. I mean, that would be a threat, to me. If you're telling someone, live by the sword, die by the sword, I don't even know why would anyone want to say that when we have laws in place for a reason. But that should not be applicable. You can say what you think about, and put your feelings out there all day, but it should never be directed towards anyone who wants to file a civil lawsuit. Just because you don't want to be named in it as a promoter is irrelevant. It's moot. It's null and void. That should never ever be even a glimpse or slight intimidation thrown out there to people who have been defrauded by a scam and want their money back. Because at the end of the day, they have every legal right to reclaim their money, period. So I have always presented documentation and evidence to show that this is what you have the right to do. You can file a civil lawsuit if you have legal standing, meaning you have the documentation and evidence to show that my civil lawsuit is justified. The complaint describes the plaintiff's damages or injury, explains how the defendant caused the harm, shows the court has jurisdiction. So you go make sure you file it with the proper courts too. And I've already stated in my last video that you guys can look up the various levels of our court system and then the various types of courts that we have here in the U.S. So make sure you go to the correct court system to file a civil lawsuit and ask the court to order relief. Basically, you're petitioning the court to get this scam, or these people running this scam, to give you your money back. And then pay your legal court fees, filing fees, and everything else on the back end in your judgment. So, a plaintiff may seek money to compensate for the damages or may ask the court to order the defendant to stop the conduct that is causing the harm. Basically, what a cease and desist order is a legal mandate to stop all illegal activity because you're causing harm. And then they had to add, the fine on top of it plus restitution. So they have been ordered in actual legal court orders, legal mandates to stop the illegal activity, to pay a fine, as well as provide restitution, meaning pay back money that's been lost to this scam. That is included in the last cease and desist order. Actually, it's all included in both cease and desist orders between California, Canada, and Wisconsin, that they have to pay restitution. So to say that you filing a civil lawsuit to reclaim damages if you do not live in those states where you're covered under that cease and desist order to reclaim restitution, to say that you shouldn't file a civil lawsuit, it's very contradictory to what's going on with the cease and desist orders. The only difference is you're not acting under a cease order for restitution. You're filing a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit, to reclaim damages lost because you were defrauded from a scam. But it's the same concept. You're asking for compensation from that. Just like people who file a request through restitution under that cease order is wanting compensation to get their money back from being defrauded underneath this scam. So whether you're covered under the cease order or you file a civil lawsuit, the concept is still the same. You can't tell people who want to file a civil lawsuit, though, you shouldn't have invested money that you can afford to lose. That's not how the law works, though. No more than you should be out promoting a scam. You shouldn't be using electronic communications to talk about people investing or soliciting investors or investments into a scam to defraud someone. People who are saying that are scared that they're going to be listed in a cease order or a civil lawsuit or in charges that could come from a bigger federal investigation. They're scared. They won't admit it, but they are. And they know that saying things that could be slightly intimidating, in my personal opinion, to someone who wants to file a civil lawsuit could probably be their best chance of not being listed. I don't know why they would think that, but that's not how that works. It's just not how that works. So I would be careful on what you say. I'm literally guarding and being careful of what I say in my videos, especially when it comes to legal matters. Anything I say, I'm reading it off of a website, and I go on the government websites like the Department of Justice and U.S. courts, because this is what the law states from them. This is the information coming from these reputable sources. We have laws in this country that we have to abide by because no one is above those laws, and no one has the right to defraud you or scam you out of any money. If someone is sitting here trying to promote some opportunity where you put in money and they can't even show you how they're trading and prove to you that there's trading occurring, then you have every right to question that. And if you lose money to that, you have every right to go through the legal process to reclaim that money, to be given the money that you've lost, in punitive damages. You have the right to request that and to go to your court systems, to the courts, to say, I need help resolving this situation because you going to them directly trying to get the money is not working. You filed the request. You filed a cease and desist letter to NovaTech and to these Pentagons and to those promoters, to the ones that are still perpetuating and soliciting investors or investments into a scam, using electronic communications to sit here and promote a scam, potentially committing wire fraud. and they failed to cease and desist, they failed to give you your money back, and then they're being insulting by saying, well, you shouldn't invest money you couldn't afford to lose. Okay, well then I'm going to the courts, and then good luck to you defending yourself with that. Good luck to that. I'm curious as to how you and your attorney plan on defending yourself when you're being slightly intimidating in videos telling people not to file lawsuits. The only time I said that it may be more beneficial to perhaps do a class action lawsuit, meaning, 30, 40, 50 of you meet the eligibility requirements to file a class action suit, would be if you think about how much you've given up to this scam. Let's say $500, but the fees and the legal fees, the court fees, the attorney fees outweigh the money you lost. It might be beneficial to join a class action or to create a class action lawsuit. Or if you can't find a class action to join, if you cannot create a class action lawsuit, then it may not even be worth filing a lawsuit over, civil lawsuit over, if the fees outweigh the punitive damages, meaning outweigh the money you've lost to this scam. So you can always file a civil lawsuit regardless, even if it is for $500, and then you can request for all those civil, the court filing fees, the legal fees, the court filing fees, your attorney fees, to be compensated back on the back end, and you get that back through your judgment if you win your case. You can always get all that money back, but you have to think about what you're paying up front to get to that point to where your case is heard in the court of law. You got to present all your evidence and documentation. The defendant is going to have their turn on defending themselves and presenting evidence and documentation. You have to think about the cost of all of that. So I have never advised anyone to not do it. I've said think about the cost of it financially, if it's worth doing. Me personally, if I put $200 into a scam or into an opportunity that turns out to be a scam, but then it's going to cost me $300 just to file the fees, or I have to pay $500 or $600 in attorney fees, then I'm not going to personally pursue a civil lawsuit. But it doesn't mean that you don't have the legal rights to still do it if you want to do it. You still have that right. So if you can get a group of people together and you guys can actually, be eligible to file a class action lawsuit, and you want to proceed that way, that could be more beneficial, cost-wise, and then you will only be paying a portion of those fees. It wouldn't be the burden on you primarily. Everyone in that class action pays a portion of those fees towards filing that lawsuit. But whatever damages, whatever, judgment you get for the damages, you get rewarded and compensated back to you, is also split by everybody in that class action. But it might be the best route for people who, put $200 or $300 in. Maybe they didn't do $10,000, but they did a couple $100, and they know if they tried to do it on their own, the cost of even going through the process of filing a lawsuit is outweighing the money they lost to the scam itself. Then it may be more beneficial for you to join the class action, or you count it as a loss. Maybe you can file it on your taxes and say, hey, this is an investment that I lost money to. Here are the cease orders to support that. And you send that with your tax filings to the IRS. But these cease and desist orders are not executed and enforced on an allegation. It has been proven that this government agency or this federal court has gathered enough documentation and evidence to prove that they indeed committed fraud. Whether it be securities fraud, or tax fraud, or bank fraud, whatever the fraud allegation is, here's the documentation and evidence to prove that the offense is legitimate and that they indeed intended to commit fraud or has defrauded a government, a bank, or other people or business. So they're not just sent out on an allegation. They're sent out because it's been proven. So you can use those cease and desist orders as a premise to build your civil lawsuit. You have case prep, maybe discovery. It's a term that I've used in other videos. Discovery being that each party has to provide information to the other. So the petitioner or the plaintiff provides documentation to the defendant and vice versa. So if you are saying, hey, if you guys have been trading, then you got to prove that. Where's the documentation to prove that trading occurred? Then the defendant will have to provide that information to the plaintiff. If it's not available, then you make that known to the court that we asked for this documentation. They couldn't even send us proof that they're trading. They couldn't send us proof that they actually are registered and that their assets are legitimate securities assets registered with the SEC. All of this because they don't want to register with the SEC. You don't want to be under, investigations or be named as cease and desist orders or in lawsuits or in federal investigations, but you want to disregard federal laws regarding the securities assets needing to be registered with the SEC. You cannot pick and choose what laws you want to abide by. You can't pick and choose that. You're either going to abide by them all or none of them. Even the fact that you're willfully disregarding a federal law regarding registering some security assets shows your willingness to disregard the law on everything else. It's ridiculous. But you don't go hollering, oh, this happened to me and somebody threatened me. Shut up. Who threatened you when you completely disregard all the other laws out there? That's laughable. Call 911 and tell somebody that, you got hit with a lawsuit and you feel threatened because you've been named in a civil lawsuit. Good luck to that. They're going to be like, so you're going to have to answer to that. You just have to go to court. Get an attorney. Get your defense going. I'm not even telling you not to countersue, because I'm sure most of them will. But if we take a look so far at the track record of NovaTech getting these cease and desist orders, and then having now promoters named in these cease and desist orders, there's a great chance that they cannot defend that because the evidence is overwhelming. And in my last video, I've already pointed out that if there's intent to defraud, you pretty much won your case. So it will be very difficult. It's like defending the defenseless. It's very difficult to prove that you did not do that when you did it repeatedly in videos. Repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. Soliciting investments or investors is part of that wire fraud. There's 4 requirements. Check out my other videos for that. You cannot solicit investments or investors, whether they be new or existing members, to perpetuate a scam and then not think you're not going to be hit with a wire fraud charge. And it's not difficult to prove wire fraud. It really isn't. So that's pretty much case prep. You get all your documents and evidence together. Each side also may file requests or motions with the court seeking rulings on the discovery of evidence or on the procedures to be followed at trial. Discovery may include a deposition. That's another term I used in the previous videos. Requiring a witness to answer questions about the case before the trial. So you can get these pedigons deposed. You can get your uplines and your promoters of this scam deposed. And they will go to court and they will have to answer questions under oath. Under oath. So guess what happens if you lie under oath? Perjury. And guess what perjury is? It's a chargeable offense. Good luck to that. So, get them deposed. Grant a witness to answer questions about the case before the trial. The witness answers questions from the lawyer under oath. Under oath. Because I'm still on point with this and I know how to read. In the presence of a court reporter who produces a word-for-word account called a transcript. Everything they say is going to be documented word for word. There'll be times where you might hear, strike from the record. That means that their attorneys is asking the courts to say, can you please not record what they just said on the record? And the judge may say yeah or nay. They may agree to it or disagree with it and be like, nope, we're just, we're going to keep it on the record or we'll strike from the record. Those are some of the things you may hear in this type of trial or type of proceeding. So that's pretty much your case prep. I've literally said you guys can file the lawsuit if only by means of getting discovery of materials and to get them deposed. Even if that's all you get out of that civil lawsuit, you've gotten way more than anyone else, because now they have been mandated and ordered to a deposition where they have to provide statements and answer questions under oath, and it would not be wise for them to go in and perjure themselves. It would not be wise to do that. And then, of course, discovery of materials. Basically, you and your attorney is asking for the defendant to provide documents and evidence and documentation, whatever is needed to help you with your case, because that helps to promote transparency as well. And then the defendant may ask you, the petitioner or the plaintiff, to say, hey, we need copies of your information on this, this, and this. If it's something that they don't need and it's not relevant pertaining to the case, it can be denied. And that's for both parties, whether it be the plaintiff or the defendant. So if you guys are asking information of each other that doesn't even apply to the case at hand or the charges at hand and are completely irrelevant, you more than likely won't get it. This is me being upfront and telling you all how this can go. Like I said, I don't do confirmation bias. I'm not here to confirm any biases on anybody. I'm telling you exactly what any attorney will tell you, because this is what I've read and what I'm getting from the Department of Justice and U.S. courts and all the thousands of attorney websites and breakdowns on, these legal proceedings and civil lawsuits and how that goes and what it means. And each phase of, like, for instance, with this civil lawsuit, each phase of it and what it pertains. I'm just giving you the raw truth, and I encourage you all to please read and research for yourselves. Call an attorney, ask all the questions until their ears bleed, and get all the information you need to help prepare yourself and to, build the documents and evidence and documentation you need to build your case. Settling differences. To avoid the expense and delay of having a trial, judges encourage the litigants to try to reach an agreement resolving their disputes. So you may be asked to do arbitration or mediation or other forms of alternative dispute resolutions designed to produce a resolution of a dispute without the need for trial or other court proceedings, because let's just face it, it's expensive to go to court and go through trial. Now, you can send a cease and desist letter and then offer the opportunity to arbitrate to get your money back in that cease and desist letter. And I've showed in my previous videos that they have a certain number of days to respond and to stop the activity. So if you send a cease and desist letter to these promoters saying you need to stop promoting the scam, you need to stop using electronic communications to solicit investments or investors into this scam, because 3 cease and desist orders said that this is a scam and they're not proving how they're not. So you need to stop. And you have lost money because these same people were your uplines. You gave them money and you're asking them to arbitrate. You're asking for a resolution without having to go to court, and they dismiss it. Then you take that letter to court. This is what I tried to do on my own. Now we need to pursue this in a court of law and request for a trial. Hopefully, if the petty-ons, I don't understand, like, they're not that bright, because they don't want to stop. They don't want to register with the SEC. None of that. So they're just going to keep getting cease and desist orders until the SEC just come in and bring the hammer down. But if your promoters or your uplines decide they want to, all right, well, you're going to have to take me to court. You've at least shown that you've tried to go the route where you arbitrate or, go through a mediation. But if not, you got to go through a trial. So litigants often agree to a settlement. Absent a settlement, the court will schedule a trial. Like I just said, in a wide variety of civil cases, either side is entitled under the Constitution to request a jury trial. If the parties waive their right to a jury, then a judge without a jury will hear the case. So basically, if you don't want a jury, the judge then becomes the jury, and then the judge will give a ruling based on the documentation and evidence and everything else. So it's up to you whether you want a jury. or if you just want the judge to serve and act as the jury. But those are the two options that you have if you go through a trial. Then, of course, the trial process, you're applying rules of evidence. The judge determines which information may be presented in the courtroom. Some information may be ruled out, so they may not even be able to use it. Or information may be brought in and have to be used for your trial case. But be prepared nonetheless. Okay? So, whether every piece of documentation you have is allowed or not, still get your information, your documentation together. And your attorneys will know what would be beneficial for your case to prove your case and what information probably would not make a difference. And the discovery process, even with you getting information from the defendant or the plaintiff, once you go through that, you think about what is actually material to this case, what's going to help me prove my case, and what's going to be indisputable. All right, so you're going against a promoter, and you're saying that they're out here committing wire fraud allegedly, and then these are their videos. I mean, it's kind of hard for them to say that's not my video when they're in the video recording themselves live in a video like that. There's certain things that's just indisputable. So once you go through that whole trial process, and then if you have a jury, they're gonna give they're going to hear both sides of the story. And then from there, they decide based on a list of rules and laws they have to apply and evidence documentation that should be considered. You have your closing arguments. Each side is going to give that closing argument. And then if it goes to a judge without a jury, it's known as a bench trial. The judge then takes all of that information, and then the judge will give a judgment, whether it be for or against the plaintiff or the petitioner. And that's pretty much that. I mean, so I'll you guys read this, look this stuff up, and then call an attorney, ask an attorney. I personally read and research things like this all the time because you have the right to know. You have the right to pursue, a case. You have the right to pursue a civil lawsuit if you want to do that. You have the right to do that. No one should be telling you not to do it. You weigh the options and then you make that determination yourself. And then when it comes to this whole nonsense because I just had to bring this up. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Sometimes people say things out of just pure ignorance or pure emotions, and they don't think about what they're saying and how it can come off and be perceived. And perception, obviously, it means a lot. It holds more weight than most people think. I'm very literal. If I say something like this, a lot of this stuff I've been saying in my videos, I've been proving it with documentation and evidence, researching it. I know a scam when I see one, but if you want to understand why I go on a cease and desist order, then I have a whole video explaining it and breaking it down and the different charges that was listed in the cease order, and then potential charges like the wire fraud that could be brought against not just these dumb peons, but their promoters and their uplines and everybody getting on YouTube and any other social media platform putting out videos talking about put money into the scam. When you have 3 cease and desist orders saying stop the illegal activity, but you got promoters out here doing the complete opposite of that, trying to actually promote or solicit investors or investments into a scam. So you have the right to file a lawsuit. Nobody should be telling you not to do that. The only people that are saying that are the ones that are afraid of being named in that lawsuit. Are the ones that are to be named in a cease and desist order. They're afraid to be caught up with this stuff legally. But yet, if something were to happen to them, they would call 911 in a hot minute. Please believe that. They would call 911 in a hot minute. Somebody tried to break into their house or, assaulted them or something. I'm not with threatening nobody. You don't need to threaten anyone. You don't even have to tell anybody you filing a civil lawsuit. Just do it. That's it. You don't even have to put it out there. I've been encouraging people to do it because you have the right to know that. You have the right to do that. That is an option for you as a citizen of the United States of America. You have the right to do that. And you can Google constitutional rights and the constitutional rights that actually cover a citizen having the ability and the authority, the right to file a civil lawsuit against another person or a company. We have a whole constitutional law that it gives you precedence and the ability to do that. You have legal standing, you have the right to do it. No one should be telling you otherwise. I gave you all my opinion on situations where I would not do it, and that's if the costs greatly outweigh the amount of money I've lost. But if you know that it's worth it, like I said, even if it's just to get these pettons deposed and to get discovery of materials, file it. That might mean way more than you think than you getting back $500. Getting them deposed and then them just going in and committing perjury might be more beneficial. I'm just saying, because if you lie, you lie. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you under oath or not. A liar is gonna lie. A thief is gonna steal. People just gonna do what they do. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. Scammers scam. They take money from people with the intent to defraud people. So it would be very difficult for a person who does nothing but lie, deceive, cheat, and steal to get under oath and actually tell the whole truth. The truth and nothing but the truth, so help them God. They're gonna lie. And it's gonna be a perjury. And then that's gonna be the end of that. That might be the way they end up going to prison anyways, because they perjured themselves, not because necessarily the SEC hurried up with their investigation and the feds moved in. Good Lord, come on, SEC. All right. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Yeah, basically that is an idiom where what goes around comes around. So how does this apply to a civil lawsuit and filing a civil lawsuit and knowing your rights pertaining to that civil lawsuit? It doesn't. You can use this idiom when it comes to gun control, live by the gun, die by the gun sort of thing. But when it comes to the law, we have laws in place for a reason. And you cannot pick and choose what laws you want to abide by. Are there crooked attorneys out there? Yeah. Are there crooked judges out there? Yes. However, saying that no one should have faith in the justice system or the legal system completely nullifies the concept of it existing in the first place. Because if you were in legal trouble or if something was going on, I use the example with a burglary, but anything happens, you're in a car accident, you're hurt, you need to call 911. Well, that's law enforcement, which falls under our legal system. So you're not going to call the 911, call the police if you end up in a car accident and somebody hits you from behind and it's their fault and not yours. You mean to tell me that somehow you're not going to call 911? Because what you're saying is very hypocritical to say some dumb stuff like this. Live by a sword, die by a sword, and the attorneys are crooked and the justice system is crooked. All that nonsense you're saying. But if you were in a car accident, you would call that same legal system to come help you if you were in a car accident because someone hit your vehicle. You can't pick and choose when you want to apply the legal system and when you don't. Whether you like it or not, it exists. And it's not going anywhere. The same people that are decrying don't file a lawsuit are the same ones that will call 911 in a hot minute if they needed them. That same legal system. Law enforcement falls underneath our judicial branch of government. They uphold and enforce laws. So does our courts and our attorneys who actually practice law. You got bad actors in every level. You got bad judges, you got bad attorneys, you got bad cops. But what you're not going to do is stop using legal services or legal enforcement when you need it. So if you're not going to, unless you're going to get on and say, I'm never ever going to call another cop ever again. If anything happens to me or my family, I'm never calling 911. And you actually do that, then I can take you seriously. But I can't take you seriously knowing that you'll be the same person in a situation where you feel threatened or somebody has wronged you or harmed you and you need to call 911. You would do that. You would call 911. You wouldn't sit here and say, I'm not calling no cops because they all crooked and I ain't getting no attorney, even though I would win my case because it's crooked. No, you would call the police. Shut up. You would call 911. You be the first one doing that. Hush. Just hush. Don't get mad when someone wants to file a civil lawsuit, when you would be the first one to call the police if you needed help. Child, please. There's no consequences to filing a civil lawsuit. There's no tick for tack with that. Like I said, the worst you deal with, if you file a civil lawsuit against these stupid promoters and these people perpetuating a scam, they counterclaim. They file one in return. But it has to have legal standing as well. The downside is they don't like being named in a cease and desist order. They can file an appeal. But guess what? They're going to exercise their legal rights. So for them to tell you not to exercise yours is hypocritical and it's laughable to everything in heaven, on earth, and probably in hell. I mean, God is literally laughing at the thought of the hypocrisy behind telling someone not to file a civil lawsuit. And if you have faith in our legal system, but then every man wants calling 911 when they feel threatened. Shut up. Child, please. I can't take them seriously. Please get an attorney if you feel like, I mean, I pulled this up because I literally heard that in a video and I just laughed. I was like, is this for real? But they said that they are not with threatening people and, like I said, I fail to believe that if they were threatened or their family or themselves and their lives were put in harm's way, I fail to believe that they will not dial 911. I fail to believe that it's a joke. And honestly, this is not relevant to someone exercising their rights. Even the Bible states that thou art to obey the laws of the land. That's a real scripture. And here's a bunch of them to kind of back that up. So, yeah, like I said, thou art to obey the laws of the land. And submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme. I mean, it's just, so speak ye and so do as they that shall be judged by the law of liberty. My good Lord. There's a slew full of scriptures right here. I had to do this. I had to do this because I don't make this stuff up off the top of my head. I don't want to do that. I want you all to see that I'm not making this up. There's so many scriptures regarding laws of the land and why you should obey it. God is not the author of confusion or chaos. People don't have the right to steal money from you or to scam you. If they're passing themselves off and being deceptive about their business, telling people they're trading or that they're a hedge fund and they're not, that is deception. That is not a matter of you put money in that you should have only done if you are willing to lose it. No, they're not trading. This isn't the stock market we're talking about. People are trying to apply the idea and the concept of a stock market to something that they don't even want regulated by the SEC. Crypto trading, you can't even prove that you're trading and none of your securities assets are registered. Don't try to apply a concept relevant to the stock market where you have losses and gains to an actual scam where there's no losses at all. And the deception in that is that they tout themselves at not having any losses. And that is backed up by their whole policy on their fake website, which is what I have in my previous video about the cease and desist with NovaTech. I literally recorded and showed you all the entire policy. Nothing in that about the stock market and losing money in the stock market because they're not registered to even do business in the stock market. And most of these people that are sitting here with this NovaTech nonsense, they don't want to be a part of the stock market or be regulated by the SEC or any of that. So don't pick and choose when you want to use ideas and things and concepts that's only relevant to the stock market and this stupid scam to try to make people feel bad for being deceived, for being lied to, for being bamboozled. because they were told this is a hedge fund and that we trade crypto and that we never have a loss. You get a 3% weekly payout every week. They were deceived by that. That's why you have cease and desist orders. Because NovaTech is lying to people, telling them what they're doing when they're actually not. So you can't take a concept relevant to the stock market talking about losses when it does not apply in this situation, because they're not registered with the SEC, nor does NovaTech participate in the stock market, nor should they be doing that in the first place. I rest my case. So for all the moronic nonsense that these promoters are putting out, once again, I urge you to report their asses to the SEC, send a cease and desist letter, and petition your local government agencies, FINRA, like Wisconsin and California did, federal courts in your jurisdiction to issue a cease and desist order, and name those dumb uplines and promoters that keep doing it, that are contradicting themselves and being hypocritical to a lot of things that is just disgusting at this point. You have the right to file a civil lawsuit. You have the right and legal standing to ask the court to help you resolve this situation. You have gone to them, you've told them to give you your money back, they refuse to do it. Arbitration is obviously not going to work for you when you've already petitioned NovaTech and these dumb petty-ons and their uplines to give you your money back, and they refuse to do that. They're telling you no. So now you got to have a whole trial. Prove that to the court. Take that evidence and documentation to the court and say, I asked these idiots to give me my money back, and I've tried to resolve this outside of the courtroom. They failed to cooperate. Now we need a full trial. I don't care if I get a jury or not, because a judge will be able to give you a judgment with all the documentation and evidence. You want a jury, get a jury. You have those options. I will not tell somebody to file or not to file a civil lawsuit. It doesn't make sense. Thou art to obey the laws of the land. Somebody tell that fake reverend that when she see this video, because I know she watched my videos, along with many others. Many of y'all uplines watch them. Oh, they do. They watch it. So here a whole lot of scriptures sent to that fake reverend. Tell her you can't obey parts of the Bible and not others. There are a lot of things that happen that I don't like, but the law works still. Your faith should be in God, but God also said, obey the laws of the land. You don't sit here and be disobedient to the law and think you're being obedient to God in the same time. That doesn't make, no, that's hypocritical. If God is saying in the word of God to obey the laws of the land, then your obedience to God should be also obedience to the laws that we have in place. That's it. Either you're all the way there that God said, don't be hot or cold. That's a thing. There's no gray. It's either black or white. That's what hypocrisy is. You cannot say you're being obedient to God and that you're a Christian, but then you're willing to disregard laws when he said to obey them. Come on now. Y'all better stop playing with Jesus, the Bible, the law, government agencies, the courts, and me. Please don't do that. Don't do that. I'm telling you all, don't do that. You know, and you can't sue people because you don't like them, because they saying something you don't like. I ain't called nobody's name in this. But let that conviction flow through your veins, because if you feel like I'm talking to you, more than likely you're being convicted of the fact that you have done the exact thing that I've said in this video not to do. Do not intimidate or influence anyone to not exercise their rights to file a civil lawsuit. If you get named in it, defend yourself. That's all you can do. File an appeal or counterclaim, defend yourself. Go to court, though. If you get deposed, you're going under oath. So don't perjure yourselves. That will not be conducive to your good liberty and freedom. Share your evidence and documentation in discovery. If you're doing something right, then you wouldn't have a problem doing that. I'm not naming names. I'm not naming channels. But if you feel that conviction, it's because you've been doing something wrong. So let God help guide you to get back on the right path. Obey the laws of the land.